Tonight on BBN, the Bonnies win twice versus St. Louis. Which Bonnie made the biggest impact? The Bonawolf, we get a behind-the-scenes look at what the Bonawolf Reilly does throughout a game. And of course, we have our final prediction for the Bonnies game against UMASS. All that and more, this is BBN.
Running the basket, going up, and she's got it.
Hello everybody and welcome to Bonnie's Basketball Now. I'm joined today by SBU-TV sports reporter Anthony Goss and Louie Genovese. We're going to have a lot on tap for today's show, starting with the Bonnies win against St. Louis, which saw a dominant first half from the Bonnies and completing the sweep versus the St. Louis Billikens. And then we hear from Mark Schmidt on what the Bonnies did right to be able to get that stature for them. And then of course the Bonnies women go off to face against VCU on Wednesday in a key game in the A10 standings. So starting right off with that St. Louis win for the Bonnies, they came out hitting on all cylinders. Schoen started with 11 of the first 15 points for the Bonnies. Later in the first, Dom Welch continues his hot streak, scoring 12 points in the first half. All five starters made their mark as the Bonnies take a 16-point lead into the break, which included this poster dunk by Schoen, which got the RC rocking. In the second half, St. Louis opens up on a 9-1 run to cut the lead to 8. And then Jaron Holmes and company did keep the Bonnies with the lead for the duration of the second half, Holmes scoring 13 in the second. St. Louis had an opportunity to tie the game with 6 seconds left, but Nesbitt is off the mark, and the Bonnies complete the sweep of St. Louis 83-79. So at the post-game press conference, Mark Schmidt had a lot to say about the Bonnies game, including what he believed his squad was able to do to get this victory against St. Louis.
You know, when you have 22 points off of turnovers and they only have one, you know, that's how we went out there. You know, we had more points off of turnovers, more points in the paint, more second chance points. And they're such a physical team. Those areas are really, really important. You know, our defense has to get better. But like I said, you know, from an offensive standpoint and from an effort standpoint, I thought it was really good.
So with what Coach Mark Schmidt said, the Bonnies outscored the Billikens 58-30 in the paint last night. And as Coach Schmidt mentioned, 22 to 1 in points off turnovers. And on top of that, the Bonnies did it in the fast break points as well, 20 to St. Louis's 5. So Anthony, overall a dominant game for the Bonnies on the stat sheet.
The Bonnies matchup zone and kind of shifting their defense really hurt St. Louis in trying to get into rhythm. Gibson Giberson, argued by some as their best player, a complete non-factor in the first game and only had bits and piece moments in the second game in the Reilly Center. So what they were able to do against St. Louis defensively is something that they can carry on in the next couple games.
And Louie, St. Louis did make a run in the second half, obviously 9-1 to start, and they had that chance to tie the game with 6 seconds left. Oshuni in the post-game press conference, he mentioned that the team's experience and their leadership, being seniors, all 5 of them in the starting lineup, was huge and monumental, and to be able to get that performance down the stretch. What do you make of St. Bonaventure's leadership down the stretch in games that are going to be very important for the rest of the season?
It's very important that they come together, they reflect on what they've done in the past 4 years, how far they've come, winning the A10 tournament, winning the A10 regular season, winning the Charleston Classic, and after knowing that they're going into the stretch, knowing that it's their last few games before the NCAA tournament and ultimately whatever happens after the season, it's very important for them to recognize how far they come and what more they can do.
Taking a look at the A10 men's basketball standings as they currently sit right now, Davidson still leading the pack despite their loss last week to Rhode Island, followed by a team that the Bonnies beat in VCU, who face again on March 1st. And then as you see, the Bonnies after beating St. Louis, and then upcoming games, UMASS, Duquesne, Rhode Island, St. Joe's, all in the bottom half of the conference, so an opportunity for St. Bonaventure, all these winnable games. And then if you take down VCU, that gives them 4 losses as well, and then all of a sudden, St. Bonaventure could be back in that double bye position. And then talking about this game against St. Louis last night, Oshuni inside, his paint presence has been huge for St. Bonaventure.
Right, and in back-to-back games, again, we're talking about this doubleheader because it was huge for this team. But Oshun was the best player in both games, protecting the rim and offensively. We've argued, maybe he's not there as much offensively this year. Where has he been? Really only getting putbacks. But he was the best center in the game, and two great front court pieces for St. Louis in Okoro and Linson. And Schoen was better than both of them.
We mentioned the fact that St. Bonaventure dominated in the paint in this game against St. Louis last night. And then Schoen, 21 points, 3 swats. In the game before at St. Louis, 12 points, 6 blocks. So he's been dominating the paint. Louie, Coach Schmidt always constantly has said over the past few games, the defense starts inside and then it works out. When the defense is doing well inside, enter Oshun. Oshun, outside defenders can kind of press up on their man and they can play more aggressive because they have Oshun in the back. So how important is that for St. Bonaventure to have that presence? And now that he's playing much better.
Yeah, it's very important because, I referenced last week how problems in the paint and, against the rim. And I said Oshun was one of those guys that really needed to step up. He clearly stepped up against St. Louis, making those blocks, protecting the rim, and getting the defensive plays the Bonnies needed.
Taking a look at this week's Bolin breakdown, and this one's a little bit of a special one because I'm watching the game against St. Louis and I see Jaron Holmes. He made a layup or a dunk or one of those situations, and then he kind of like shushed. It looked like it was his opponent, but then he did it a couple more times, and it was obvious that it was to the fans in the back. And every time he scored for the duration of the game, he was shushing the crowd and all that. And I just think that is showing Jaron Holmes, not even just him in particular, but the entire team having that us against the world mentality because they see what's going on social media, the slow middle of the season run that they had, but now they're kind of getting back into that groove, and they said after the St. Louis game at St. Louis, keep that same energy. So they definitely are hearing the noise, and not that they're saying go away fans, but they're definitely embracing it, and Jaron Holmes in this last game played very well as well.
Yeah, Jaron Holmes definitely played well in this game. The Bonnies can run with some of the best teams in college basketball. Even though they might not win the A-10 this season, they could still make some noise the rest of the season and still, maybe win the A-10 tournament and make their way to the NCAA tournament.
You're right, Louie, and we had the Bonnies favored throughout the preseason, with the AP rankings, the non-conference schedule. It started off really good for them, but when things kind of went back and went sour, people started doubting them. But I think that's where this team really thrives. They like being the underdog when they're 4th or 5th in the A-10 standings, when people are starting to doubt them and, ooh, Davidson, ooh, Dayton, VCU, what are they doing? But Mark Schmidt's bunch, after losing that game at Richmond, they got a win against Fordham and 2 wins against St. Louis. They're on a 3-game win streak with 3 more winnable games consecutively at home. So, you don't want to, look too far out, but the Bonnies are in a really good standing right now.
Taking a look at Oshun's block record, Louie, you're really big on this. Obviously, you mentioned a few episodes back that, he's kind of slowed down a little bit, but these last 2 games against St. Louis, 6, then 3, so he's definitely creeping up on that now. Yeah, definitely.
Last week I mentioned, how Oshun in the past 3 games only had a total of 3 blocks, and now the next 3 games he gotten a total of 12. And, he's now 14 away from the Bonnies' all-time block record. And, if he has another game like he did against UMASS, then Duquesne, and Rhode Island, I can at least see him get the record on either Saturday or Tuesday against Rhode Island.
Quick reminder, follow us on all of our social media pages and our platforms to see all the BBN content that we roll out during the week. Plus, lacrosse season has started. Baseball and softball will soon follow. Don't miss a thing from St. Bonaventure Athletics. Follow SBU-TV Sports on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Throughout the Bonnies' win versus Fordham, BBN got an exclusive look at what the Bonnies mascot does behind the scenes. Take a look. Reilly gets ready for the Bonnies games about a half hour before tip-off. Then, it is non-stop pep for the Bonnies furry friend. It is widely known that Reilly owns some of the best dance moves inside the Reilly Center on Bonnies game days. But where does he get the inspiration for all his moves? I asked him, and remember, Reilly's true identity stays confidential. A humble wolf, Reilly is. He became the Bonnies mascot this season for a simple reason: his enthusiasm and his love for kids. Throughout the Bonnies basketball games, Reilly can be found all over the arena. At times, a fan could even play a version of Where's Waldo to locate Reilly. See if you can find him. There he is, immersed in the Bonnies student section, silently but enthusiastically cheering on the Bonnies. Even with my authorization to follow Reilly around, there is still some aspects we aren't allowed to see. Reilly, of course, needs bathroom and water breaks throughout the game. I asked Reilly, how hot does it really get inside that furry suit? A sacrifice for the true love of bringing the Bonnies fans together and cheering on the Bonnies enthusiastically, without ever saying a word. Next week, we have a little surprise with you with the Bonner Wolf. Remember that next Tuesday at 5 p.m. when the Bonnies take on Rhode Island, we will be live doing a BBN episode from the Reilly Center. You will not want to miss that, and you can't get enough of the furry St. Bonaventure mascot, Reilly. So stay tuned. In 1 minute, we look at where St. Bonaventure's path to an Atlantic 10 championship stands, and later on, we preview the women's Bonnies game tomorrow night versus VCU, and some things to watch for in that one as well. This is BBN.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Welcome back to BBN. Anthony, we mentioned before the A-10 standings as they currently stand, and the Bonnies just a half game back of St. Louis. Same in the win column, just one extra loss. So what do you think St. Bonaventure needs to do the rest of the way to get into that top 4 spot? As we all know, that is going to be a double bye in the A-10 tournament.
We laid it out before. They have 3 games now. It started with St. Louis tonight with 4 games, but now it's 3 games in a row that are at home against very, winnable opponents. It's not like you're welcoming Davidson or VCU back to Reilly Center. You've already played those games. The Bonnies have to do is, if you want to get a double bye, you depend on other teams to lose in front of you, but you have to win those games. You protect home court, and then your last couple games, you steal a couple on the road. You're in good position there because the A-10 has been so back and forth this year. We saw Davidson, fast start. They're kind of reeling a little bit after their loss this weekend. Dayton's been pretty good, but can they still be consistent? So relying on the other teams to beat up on each other, but taking care of your business, and the road will clear for you if you're the Bonnies to get to that double bye.
Yeah, the Bonnies definitely got to do their part because, it seems that every other team can be doing their part, getting the other guys to lose. And the Bonnies need to be able to take advantage of that. I think getting to the 4 spot is definitely the highest they can go right now since the number 1 spot is definitely out of reach for them. But I still think getting the necessary wins, while the other teams get the necessary losses, the Bonnies can still finish the season strong in the A-10 standings and finish at 4.
I wouldn't count them out just yet, though, because if you're looking at Davidson the last couple games, 2 games last week, at home against Joe's and then at Rhode Island. They lost the game to Rhode Island, weren't defending very well. St. Joe's, same sort of deal. St. Joe's is one of the better teams in the conference. They had to go to overtime in that game to win that. So Davidson's still the class of the conference, as you have said, but they're definitely not unreachable, in my opinion.
Obviously, the next Bonnies game will be against UMASS here at the Reilly Center. So speaking on UMass a little bit, obviously they lost Trey Mitchell to Texas. That was a big drop for them. They've been kind of mediocre in the A-10 right now, but as we all mentioned that the A-10 very competitive this year. Anybody can beat anybody. So talk a little bit about UMass and what they bring to the table against St. Bonaventure.
Yeah, UMass has a couple guys scoring in double figures. The leader is Noah Fernandez, about 15 points a game. The key in this game will be stopping the known. You are coming off a big game against St. Louis, 2 back-to-back monster wins that have completely turned the season around for the Bonnies. How do you respond in really less than 2 days against a team? They're not one of the better teams in the conference, but they're still in the A-10, so definitely anything is possible. So it's about getting a quick turnaround, and as Schmidt always likes to say, stopping the known. And if the Bonnies do that, they should be in good position on Wednesday night.
Yeah, Louie, what do you see from, obviously, St. Bonaventure spotting a 3-game win streak going into this next game? What do they have to do to kind of keep that ball rolling?
They got to be able to protect the paint, protect the rim, keep making the necessary shots, and have good communication.
Coming up next, we preview the Bonnie's women's game tomorrow night against VCU. And in 3 minutes, what you've all been waiting for, BBN's picks for the Bonnie's men's game versus UMASS. Stay with us.
Put the keys down, Kevin.
But I'm gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
My text to emoji ratio has gotten a little out of hand.
A little?
Yep, I'm definitely gonna call a ride home.
Welcome back to BBN. As we mentioned, the women's Bonnies will be taking on VCU tomorrow night at VCU, so it's going to be a very tough game for them as VCU is playing very well this season. What can you tell us about that matchup for the Bonnies?
They've won 4 in a row, including one against Dayton, who is the #2 team in the conference. It's going to be a tough road game for the Bonnies, especially after losing their last 2. They had a little bit of momentum going last week, but 2 losses, one of them coming to GW, really kind of killed that, kind of took a couple steps back. We've been talking about the whole year about how they need to get to out of that pillow fight area and into the middle of the pack. And it's a tough ask, but if you want to do that, if Jesse Fleming's squad wants to keep their position in the A10 standings, this game against VCU on Wednesday night is going to be one that they need to win.
And Louie, what do you think? Obviously, St. Bonaventure against VCU. The Bonnies, I don't think they necessarily have to win that game. VCU, a very tough opponent, but VCU did beat Richmond. Obviously, you don't look at other games around the A10, like they beat him, they beat them. But what do you think? Do you think St. Bonaventure has a true chance, a fighting chance against VCU tomorrow night?
I really feel like they definitely just have a fighting chance. They got to keep the momentum going they had from the past few games. Ajane, Harris, Diskowski, they're definitely having good seasons. They just got to keep it going against VCU.
And then speaking on the Bonnies' last game against GW, their fourth quarter woes kind of made that return. Obviously, it was an issue in prior years under head coach Jesse Fleming and then earlier this season. But it looked like they kind of turned the corner in the middle of the A10 conference schedule. But then right back against GW, they scored 2 points in the entire fourth quarter. And I think they did it earlier in the A10 schedule versus Duquesne. So they're having these spots in these games where they don't score in the fourth quarter. And obviously, fourth quarter is game time, as Ajane Johnson would say. So they got to kind of fix that problem as they go towards the end of the conference.
Right. And you can't win every game. You can't expect to win every time you're out there. But 2 points in the fourth quarter, when that's game time, like you said, that's not going to get it done no matter who you're playing. So hopefully, there's a turnaround there. Maybe you're not going to win every game, but solidifying your finish so that you can give yourself the best chance possible to win. I think that's what Jesse Fleming and his squad need to focus on as they go forward.
And Louie, 2 of their next 4 games are against, obviously they play Rhode Island unbeaten in the A10 conference, but they do play Duquesne again at home this time. They lost to them earlier in the season at Duquesne. And then they also play George Mason, who they already beat this season at George Mason. So they have an opportunity to go maybe 2-2 the rest of the way, and that is important, in my opinion, to get them some momentum heading into the A10 conference. What do you say about that?
I definitely say it's very important that they get at least wins from one of those teams. Against losing to Duquesne was a bummer, but getting a win against George Mason, it could get them some real momentum going.
Now it's finally time for our final predictions for Wednesday's matchup against UMass for the men's basketball team here at the Reilly Center. Obviously, UMass kind of in the middle of the conference, sitting at 11-12. Anthony, what do you got?
Well, it's going to be tough for them to bounce back after an emotional weekend and then following that up with a big win at the Reilly Center. I think that they'll get the job done, though. I see UMass, keeping it close early. The Bonnies will kind of rub off the dust, get back into the swing of things. But I see this going a lot like the Fordham game last week, where it's close a little bit early and then they pull away later. And I got the Bonnies winning this one over UMass, 71-57.
I definitely think that the Bonnies are probably not going to be a little tired out because they only had 1 day of rest or practice. I feel like this Genovese game is going to be way tighter than some people thought, even though it's UMass. But I still think the Bonnies still have what it takes to make the necessary shots, play great defense in the paint, guard the rim, and keep it close. So I'm going to take the Bonnies 77-69.
Good scores from you guys. I'm going to go with St. Bonaventure 75, UMass 55. I think St. Bonaventure has just finally found their groove. They're playing with that extra motivation, as we talked about with the bowl and breakdown. And I just think that UMass just doesn't have the firepower to keep up with, obviously, St. Bonaventure, the Iron Five, as they were referred to as earlier this year. So I definitely think St. Bonaventure, after beating Fordham in blowoff fashion, dominant first half versus St. Louis, I think they're going to be able to do it again at home against UMass when they are on a tear so far as a team. And don't forget, we are live from the Reilly Center next Tuesday at 5 p.m. for the Rhode Island versus St. Bonaventure game. You will not want to miss it. We have a lot in store for you. We will be live at 5 p.m. on Facebook, and feel free to show up early to support the game. Well, guys, that is all the time we have for BBN this week. Of course, my thanks to Anthony Goss and Louie Genovese. I'm Ryan Bolin saying so long and see you next week.
Smooth under the basket, going up and she's got it.